So it's 24th of May 2019, and just been announced today that Theresa May has named her formal departure date as leader, which is the 7th of June, about 2 weeks from now. Um, that's her departure date as leader, but her departure date as Prime Minister will therefore be sometime after that, likely late July. When I first heard the news, I thought that was departure time as PM, but it's just as leader. So actually, there will be a transitionary period, which is technically not leader, but she's still prime minister. So it's I'm trying to figure the last time we had that situation. I know when Major was facing some of his leadership challenges in the mid 90s, he stood down as leader to run for a leadership bid, which he was successful in. Okay, so I'll be making more videos, of course, about this over the next few weeks and about the issues around it. So for now, I'm just going to have a little bit of basic commentary. Firstly, we saw today a very human side of Theresa May that I think will definitely go down as quite notable, because this was a prime minister who was often accused of being robotic. And with the kindest will in the world, it's hard to not see that. May often did have a style of delivery that did seem robotic, quite honestly. And something like that, leaders, people can't help the way they speak, but unfortunately, in an era where perception is so very important in politics, that did matter. Um, Theresa May, like every new prime minister, had a sort of honeymoon period for about a year. She was doing relatively well in the polls. Corbyn was very controversial. Um, and she was having a relatively strong period. But it's very difficult to see this as a strong premiership. In her speech, she said, "I'm only the second woman prime minister, but by no means the last." And shortly after that, saying that it was a privilege to serve the country she loved, she broke down. I mean, there's no other word for it. She really was in tears. And there are some echoes of when Thatcher left Downing Street, and you could see her crying as she went to the car. But of course, Thatcher was in office for 3 times as long as May. Um, and, she was a far more powerful political figure. I think May has had a really difficult time of it for a variety of reasons. There is sympathy to an extent, but some of it is definitely of her own making. I think that a lot of her response to her leadership problems has been to blame Parliament. I mean, after the 2017 general election, she'd done the right thing initially, like giving condolences and so on to Tories who'd lost their seat. But I think maybe she could have handled that better. Um, there's other areas where it just felt to me like she was trying her best to please both sides, and coming in as a Remainer, or an MP who'd voted Remain, that was always going to be an Achilles heel in the eyes of Brexiteers. And to be fair to May, I think they kind of went out of the way to make things hard for her. I don't think they necessarily helped matters. Um, for example, the constant leadership speculation. And you can find this to some extent in every premiership, but with May, it really went overboard. And I don't see how that helped her position at all. But she was trying to make very difficult negotiations with Brussels. How the constant leadership speculation helped. Um, so I sort of see that some of it was her own fault, but I don't think her party helped matters. And the deputy chair of the 1922 committee, I forget his name now, but he said that definitely they could have treated her better in that sense. The truth of the matter is, whoever was in her position post Brexit was going to have a difficult time of it. I do not buy this idea that if it had been a someone like Boris Johnson or Michael Gove, they would have had an easy time because they would have just brought us out and that would be it. No, I think they would have also come under enormous scrutiny from the Remain side. And I think that this was always going to be a complicated business. And one of the things that irritate me about the Leave side is how they make it all black and white. Like it's a simple thing. It really isn't. You don't pull a country out of an economic and political union that we've been in for 46 years and expect it to be simple. I think that's astonishingly naive. Um, May's had a rough time of it. I mean, even outside Brexit, starting with Grenville, there was that awful year, 2017, where there were so many tragedies in one year, often man-made. The Grenville tragedy, she appeared to be out of touch with that. Should she have went to the site immediately afterwards? Maybe she should, although she wouldn't have been welcomed. So that was one of those situations I think she's between a rock and a hard place. And I think responsibility for Grenville can't be laid on any one person or one party. Then, of course, there was the terror attacks, Manchester, London Bridge, Westminster, all within one year. So um, that's not necessarily a reflection on May. It's just a reflection of the era that we're in and her response to it. Was she vocal enough on pan-Islamism? Unlike Jeremy Corbyn, she wasn't afraid to say the word, so I give her credit for that. But I still think that establishment politicians across the board are way too cautious on this. They still won't be vocal enough about toxic ideology of pan-Islamism. I think the Tories are better than Labour, but I think there's still too much political correctness around, frankly, Islam. But there's other areas that we can analyse with the May Premiership, and I will give her credit. There was one area I believe she did show strength on, and that was her response to Russia. I think that that may, for me, be her strongest moment. If she's failed on the Brexit negotiations, her three attempts to get that vote through Parliament failed. It's a total impasse. Then her response to Russia showed strength. She showed assertiveness. She didn't tolerate Russian bullying. She expelled Russian diplomats. She'd done the right thing, with the overwhelming evidence pointing to Russian involvement in the Salisbury attack. Um, in some regards, I feel she could have done a lot more about China. I'm really not happy with this Huawei situation. I think she's kind of left that in a halfway house, her and Philip Hammond. And I think they could have shown a lot more strength to China. I suspect it's about kind of trying to shore up post Brexit trade, but it shouldn't be at the price of surrendering ourselves to a hostile, powerful foreign state like China, which has an agenda of undermining Western democracy. Um, what else can we say about Theresa May? She showed resolve on Scotland. She was a staunch unionist from the start, and hasn't been another Scotland referendum, which I think is a good thing. I don't think there should be. I think the Scottish people made their decision in 2014. Scotland is part of the United Kingdom. Um, I appreciate May's support for Northern Ireland. Now, I know this is a controversial area because of the views the DUP has on gay rights and so on, but May showed herself to be a truly British Prime Minister by standing by Northern Ireland in that sense, by not ignoring the province, and by from day one saying that she believed in the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. That to me is important. Um, Finally, yeah, I'll be making more videos about this, so I don't need to give a very in-depth analysis here. But there were some aspects of her premiership that were, in my view, a continuation of the uglier aspects of the Cameron years. Austerity continued, and it did hit some of the most vulnerable people in society. And the Tories' response to how the DWP does things is definitely not noble. I mean, the recent death of Stephen Smith is a glaring testimony to that. And that's something I will always associate with the Cameron May years. although some of it definitely went on under New Labour as well. Um, this has not been an easy time for anyone. I mean, this is not just like it's been a difficult time for this Prime Minister, it's been a difficult time for the country in general. So it will be difficult to look back on the May years with much optimism and much brightness. But of course, a lot depends on who the next leader is and what direction they take. I think Johnson has a strong chance. I'll be making another video about the candidates, but I think Johnson has a strong chance, but he will also have a lot of people who are very wary of a Johnson premiership. So probably the safest pair of hands is Jeremy Hunt. Um, and it's difficult to know what to think of Hunt. Anyway, that's more for another video. But if they push for a no deal Brexit, I don't know. I think what Leavers are going to find out is if they get a hard Brexit here at the top, that person is not going to have an easy ride either. So be interesting to see how this develops. Um, it's incredibly tough being Prime Minister. I mean, the scrutiny that they face is immense, absolutely immense. When people go on about politicians' salaries, I don't think they really take into account just how much pressure these people are under, particularly with something like Brexit. And she did put herself into the lion's den. She knew what she was getting into, so that's also true. But yeah, it's been a difficult time, and it's very difficult to look at it any other way. Um, but I do give her credit for showing strength from Russia. For me, that was the strongest part of her premiership, and it was strong. She done more to stand up to Russia than any other British prime minister in modern history, except maybe Thatcher. So I give May credit for that. I just wish she would have shown the same resolve with China and Huawei.